Hello, welcome back to the 10th episode of the Aussie Footy Show presented by the BJ Show. Okie dokie, so before we get underway into this 10th episode of the Aussie Footy Show, we would like to let you know that the goal we are reaching is 1K, 1,000 by May or mid-May. What you need to do to reach and help this goal, all you have to do is listen to the latest episode where you can find us Apple Podcasts, the Facebook page, the BJ Show podcast. Please like it, helps it. All the latest episodes will go straight into that, as well as Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Okay, dokie. So this episode will quiz and reviews all to do with the Easter round. 6 rounds, amazing. We'll get into the 7th round known as ANZAC, so Australia and New Zealand. We'll share the each games and why we will have that. But before we get into it, it's been a long time since we're both in the same room, and let's welcome the co-host Aidan, mate. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me as always. Pleasure to be back in the studio with you.
Yes, a different studio, but it still works. So, yes, it's good to be back doing our Aussie Footy Show. Yes, one episode. Okay. Before, let's just get into it, but really get into your thought. How much, and you were saying this before, how much you like the festival in South Australia for Gadaround?
Yeah, Ben, that's a really good question. I just think that, it's such a South Australian thing now. It's a very, very iconic piece of South Australia. In terms of our calendar of the year, we have the Fringe in town, we have the Gadaround in town here in Adelaide, and then we have this break of nothing much, but we're trying to just build in some of these events as we go throughout the year. But I understand that West Australia does want to put in a bid to try and take it away from South Australia, but my only concern with that is I know that it's hard enough to get one team to travel west every weekend, and with the rate of the West Australian clubs selling their home games off to North Melbourne, that's not a good look for them. And I also know that if you're struggling to get one club heading west every weekend, then the rest of the league's not going to, the whole league's not going to want to head west for one weekend of football. So I think South Australia, also geographically, is just a great middle spot of the country, and it is a footy state. So it really is, apart from Victoria, it's the second hub of football in Australia, and right in the middle of the country, so all the teams can converge from wherever they're coming from quite easily, and it's not too far one way or the other to get into the state, because South Australia is really the piece of the country, if you look at a map, that keeps Australia bound together. We are that piece of sticky tape in the middle of the country holding it together. So, for that reason, and talking about just being a big football state, I think we definitely have to be able to keep Gadaround here in South Australia.
Anyway, let's get straight in the Easter round. Big upsets. We'll chat about doing that, reviews and thoughts with Aidan. But there's also big winners, big upsets. But we first up start Easter Thursday. Well, what a big game this one, knowing at the Gala, Brisbane is pretty good. Favourites to win this game. Yeah, look, this crowd was 34,802 fans. But we'll start off Brisbane. Look, they love playing on prime time like Easter, and it's the first time on the Chris Fagan's actually a really embarrassing loss, and this game has to be not good for the Brisbane. You go at home and you get defeat big against a good team like Collingwood. It's not great. Well done. Yes, I know that Brisbane will have to bounce back. They play St Kilda. We'll share that very soon for ANZAC round, but you go in front of your Brisbane supporters knowing that it's a sold out crowd, but yeah, probable was the word, and I know Brisbane will bounce back. They have to find knowing from that whole defeat with Collingwood. Look, big winners. Well done to Johnny Alex. Yeah, 200 game. Milestone, that's pretty good effort. And getting the 52-point win is a huge point. Yeah, they'll take the points. They're on top. They're best team at this part of the round. We'll now come to breakdown quarter by quarter. Good start, 4 goals to Collingwood, Brisbane 2 goals. End of the first quarter, Collingwood 10 points up. Then it was 4 goals to 2 for Collingwood, and it was 19 points. We come to 42 points of the third quarter, so margin just building, and Brisbane just could not get. It was just not a good, nice victory. But look, I'm going to share this play of the game. Brisbane and Collingwood. Nick Dacos, 131 AFL fantasy with a goal, 38 disposals, 6 marks, 3 tackles, 8 clearances, and a big 645 metres game. Well done to Nick Dacos from Collingwood. Well, now, Aidan, I'll now let you share views and thoughts for the Lions and the Pies.
Thank you very much, Ben. So, I mean, this is one of those games I think Brisbane will probably rubbish come midweek. So they're probably already looking ahead to where they are going forward. Collingwood, though, this is a big, big win for them. You know, going away to Brisbane and picking up a win in the manner that they did. And sometimes I talk about sometimes telling the scoreboard as a lie, but this scoreboard was absolutely true on the night. Collingwood were far and away the better side, blowing Brisbane out of the water by half time. This game was all but Collingwood's to lose, and they didn't drop it in the second half. In fact, they got a lot better in the second half. So from a Collingwood perspective, a very good 4-quarter effort for them. And my player of the game will be from Collingwood. It will be the other Dacos boy. It'll be Josh Dacos. 95 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 30 touches, 17 kicks, 13 handballs, 5 marks for Josh Dacos.
Alright, there were some good facts from the Easter Thursday. Good Friday, we got a double header. First up, we got North Melbourne, Carlton, Easter. Good Friday, traditional, these two sides, but before myself as BJ get straight into it, Aidan, share your thoughts, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. North Melbourne supporters, you might want to turn the volume down for this one because you are about to get absolutely flamed. You are a club who is 15 years in the past because your coach is 15 years in the past. You are a club who should be on the improve. You have a great list, you have great young talent. You really realistically should be being more competitive in these games. But you're just not because, again, you are playing football from 15 years ago. And Alistair Clarkson genuinely has proven time and time again over the last 2 or 3 years with North Melbourne, he has not adapted his coaching style to fit modern AFL. So if you are going to actually be taken seriously, you need to get rid of Alistair Clarkson. This was a good game for you to have a chance in, and you were nowhere near them. So the final score, you guys have to look in the mirror at this, is 11-5-71 for North Melbourne, and that is just decent, unrespectable. Cannot stand that because you are playing a Carlton team who are perceived as weakened and hurt by the AFL at large, and you let them get away to 24-9, 153. So really no excuses for that bigger loss by North Melbourne. Really should have been a lot more competitive in that game. But if you don't start trending in the way of modern football, you're not going to get these results that we saw. Hawthorn, I talk about Hawthorn. They went from Clarkson. Sam Mitchell revolutionised their way of playing football, and they jumped the timeline. They are 3 years ahead of the timeline because they started playing a modern brand of football. North Melbourne equally probably could be going to runs with Hawthorn, but they are not because they are still behind the game as it is. But I'm just disappointed in North Melbourne, and I'm just upset at the way this club's handled themselves over the last couple of years and not looked in the mirror. And when you guys signed Alistair Clarkson, I was very sceptical for this reason, and now it's just proven true because you're playing football from Hawthorn's premiership era. Well, we're not in Hawthorn's premiership era anymore. We're in the Brisbane era, we're in the Collingwood era, we're in the Sydney era. You guys just need to clean up and start to see, do you still need Alistair Clarkson as your coach, or should you bring in someone new? Because Carlton probably were weak and wounded, but they put in a much, much better, much, much stronger effort than they should have, considering that they had players unavailable. But we're going to quickly go straight to my player of the game, who is George Hewitt from the Carlton Football Club. 123 fantasy, 1 goal, 34 touches, 13 kicks, 21 handballs, 1 mark, and 9 tackles. So that's all I have to say on this game. Ben, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aidan. And look, there's some good words in that for North Melbourne. Before I get really, when you have, before we get into this game, I do like to share what games we have on Good Friday. So we do have North Melbourne, Carlton at Marvel, then West Coast and Essendon, which I think is the game of the round, but we'll get to that. So Sheets Cloud, 46,000 plus for North Melbourne home game. I think it was more Carlton than North Melbourne, but look, you don't bring old, you bring modern. That's the big word today. It's quick football and big winners. Like Aidan said, and I'll say it as well, 24-9, 153, 11 goals, 571. So for most of the time, North Melbourne finds out, they start really well, and then they just go tired. And there's something not right. They've got a good list. good players. In the off-season, they've picked up experience, and that's what we'll share quarter. Just break it down quick. 7 goals to 2 in the first. Then we come to 4 goals to 2 in the second. 20 points up. So it was very close to them. Then it went 6 goals to 1 in the third. 50 points up. And then 9 goals to Carlton to 4 goals. So, yes, North Melbourne can get lots of goals, but not enough. And it should be a lot over, a lot more. And you've got to wake up. But getting straight into the best player for North Melbourne Carlton, like Aidan, is, George Haylett, included 123 AFL fantasy, 1 goal, 34 disposals, 9 tackles, 12 clearances, 412 metres game. There's a huge well done on your game performance from George Haylett from Carlton. Okay, so we're heading to the West at Optus Stadium. What should be the host upset of the round? We got West Coast and Essendon face to face. Well, I think I will break down the quarter by quarter, but I've got to say, credit to West Coast. Yes, he got massive defeat against Carlton and come home in front of your West Coast supporters. You'll never, ever not have a sold-out almost crowd for West Coast. How they're right behind their crowd. And I tell you, this is a unfortunate, unlucky. So, like I said, let's get down to quarter by quarter. West Coast, strong start. And why strong? Because they started well. They've done that a couple of times, and they've never given up. To Essendon, just the 1 goal. So 22 points. 3 goals to 2, Essendon way. So margin was 3 goals. Then we come to the second half. It was 5, then a huge quarter from Essendon. They kick 5 goals, knowing that they'll come back into this game, and it's not easy to play them in Perth. The goes up to Stadium, West Coast kicking those 2 goals, and the third, it was even. So who wants to come home more than the other? We'll find out. 2 goals each final quarter, and Essendon coming home was a big win. 11-11-77 to 11-9-75. So bravely, West Coast should have won it, and I don't know what else I can really say. So I am going to just tab into Nick Martin. Look, he played so well in that defence, and he's becoming quite of a scary for Essendon. He's done so well, but his stats was 26 disposals with the 4 marks, 4 tackles, 12 tackles, 122 AFL fantasy. So knowing that he done so well for Essendon, there should be a winner for West Coast, but it was just very even all game. And yeah, so Aidan, it's time to share your thoughts and reviews for the Eagles and the Bombers.
Thank you very much. So, West Coast really should have won that game. You were flying in the first quarter. You were absolutely flying, and you should have not taken your foot off the gas. But it is when you took your foot off the gas, you let the Bombers come right back into the contest. And they are a team who know how to get back into a contest. They are a tough team. They are a gritty team. They are a questionable team at times. They are a dirty team at times. But they know how to get into a contest when they need to get into a contest. And West Coast is just that little lapse is all it took for Essendon to come back. And that's a learning point for this team. It's a very young side still. So they need to learn that they just can't have these mental lapses during a game when they are, in a good position, when they're in a position to win a game of football against a team who are probably, I'd say equal opposition to them or a slightly greater opposition to them. Which, I think everyone this year to West Coast is probably a greater opposition to them. So these chances won't come along too often this year, so they have to be able to take them. For the Bombers, though, real gritty effort in that third term and in that final quarter. Just getting himself enough to get over the line. So, they get over the line. They do lose Sam Draper, but they are still in, the winning position at the end of the night, and that's really all that matters in the AFL is who gets those 4 points at the end of the game. So the final score here was West Coast 11-9-75, Essendon 11-11-77. My player of the game will be 2 metre Peter, who had 6 goals, 17 touches, 11 kicks, 6 handballs, 7 marks, 3 tackles, and 5 hitouts on 119 AFL fantasy.
Okay, Super Saturday Easter football, and we continue with 3 games to share. First up, the MCG for the Dockers and the Demons, Melbourne and Fremantle. Second game, I think it's the game of the round, most terms saying that, at the Adelaide Oval, was the LA Crows and GWS Giants. And the third and final upset of the mother game, no one saw this coming, it's Richmond Tigers and Gold Coast Suns. So first game will take on to the Melbourne and Fremantle, what should be an interesting game, MCG, and listen to Aidan's thoughts and get ready, Melbourne and Fremantle supporters, you're going to hear it. But anyway, Melbourne did play well. I did not see this come. 4 quarters of football. Where's this at the beginning of the year till you want to do this now? Now, low crowd score 25,202 is just not great. You could not be playing the MCG with that kind of crowd. Where are we? From the 90s? Well, look, I gotta say 6 goals to 4. Very even. So it was any game, anyone to control that quarter, but was Melbourne by 11 points. But Melbourne keep adding 6 goals to 4 goals at 21 points. So it was still no one's out of it. But look, at the end of the third quarter, it was 19 points. They shared the quarter with goals. And look, like I said, 3 goals each, but Melbourne was 1 goal. So well done, Melbourne claimed the win and 16-11, 107 to 14 for 14 goals, 13-97, 10-point victory. So it was close all game, but Fremantle just could not, there's no use. They're in much better form, and they know what they need to do, to how did Melbourne got out of the blocks early, with their best experience match gone, One game is not going to win and play final. And I just think, Christian Pachata, Han Oliver, these guys, they're playing their best game, but you need to do that all year. And they've finally come together and done this, but they're not giving up. But let's now clear that up. Now it's time for Jake Bowie's my best player, included 113 AFL fantasy, 29 disposals, 7 marks, 3 tackles, 3 clearances, 649 AFL metres gained. And well done to Jake Bowie from Melbourne on your game performance. Now, Aidan, it's time to share your thoughts. Here it is.
Yeah, again, this is something that I don't think anyone saw coming. Melbourne, really, really poor start to the season. With their poor performance, they start the season, 0-5, and really, they are a team who looked dead and buried, a week ago, and now they come out and do this to a Fremantle side who people are saying should be odds on for a top 4 and probably a grand final appearance. And, this is the kind of stuff that, we get out of Fremantle, and this just vindicates everything that I've said about them in the last couple of months, about me jumping off of them, because I've had enough of this kind of rubbish from them. It is this kind of stuff that when the going gets tough, Fremantle get going. Unfortunately, Fremantle get going straight back to their mummies, because they cannot handle the pressure of a high-intensity AFL game. It is not just this group of Fremantle either, it is systematic with them. 30 years of this from Fremantle. Get close, get in the game, fall off. Get close, get in the game, fall off. Get close, get in the game, fall off. When does it get close, get in the game, take over? It just never happens with them. Because here, again, really, real tight game was only between, 3 goal and 4 goal for most of that game. They come back a little bit late, but really most of the game was played between 3 goals and 4 goals. And again, there's no pressure being applied to Melbourne. They are just letting Melbourne sit at, a 3 to 4 goal margin for most of the game. And they have to do better than this. So it's just real vindication for me, just showing that this is exactly what I know them for, and they're doing it again. And everyone's saying, they've got Luke Jackson over the years. They've got Shea Bolton over the years. And this is what happens when you go to Fremantle. You get a top-tier player, and they turn into absolute mediocre sludge. That is what has happened to Fremantle throughout the years as well. They bring in these top-tier players, and they just turn into garbage. But Melbourne, well done getting off the stack, leading one team without a win this year. And my player of the game will be from the Melbourne Demons. It will be Cozzy Pickett. 118 AFL fantasy, 5 goals, 24 touches, 16 kicks, 8 handballs, 5 marks, and 3 tackles.
Okay, so we're heading to the second Super Saturday Easter football, and we're heading to Adelaide Oval for the LA Crows host GWS Giant. Well, before I get straight into it, Aidan, I will now let you share the Crows and the Giants' thoughts.
Thank you very much. So, this was on a really wet, really windy, really wild day in Adelaide. It was raining all day, heavy winds all day. It was quite the day out in South Australia, and, very, very traditional football weather. So not exactly the weather that these modern AFL players are acclimatised to. Probably something back in their granddaddy's day of, the AFL, the VFL, the SANFL, whatever league you want to come from, whatever state you're from. But it was a game about who the toughest team was, who was willing to get the lowest and get in and under and get the footy. And that team was the Adelaide Crows. They win the game 7-10-52, GWS 4-10-34 in a one-way traffic game where the wind was giving you all one direction and nothing back the other way. So, great win for the Crows here. Really big win over a big side as well. After their failure at Gold Coast, a letdown in Galleround against the Cats, they get a big win against the big side. They show their mettle. They show they are a genuine team in 2025. They are a team who I think are very much in the mix this year. I think that letdown against Geelong is just a blip on the radar. Again, Gold Coast, we've been over this before. I've been over it before, but the AFL having to come out and say there were 2 counts of a wrong mistake by the umpire. That's just not uncalled for at AFL level. Umpire should be doing better. But again, this week, no umpire interference, no letdowns, big game, big win. And, it was only, 3 goals in the end, but in the wind and in the weather, that 3 goals, and this is one of those games where the scoreboard did lie, because that 3 goals probably felt like about 5 or 6 goals, in the end. So Crows are quite a solid win in the end. In that weather, my player of the game will be from the Adelaide Crows. It's going to be Jordan Dawson with 123 fantasy, 27 touches, 22 kicks, 5 handballs, 5 marks, and 8 tackles. Over to you now, Ben.
Thank you, Aidan. So, look, windy conditions, wet, dry material of football, and look, 40,000, pretty low, but pretty loud for the Adelaide Oval, for the Crows and the Giants. And, I'm now going to get straight into my views. Look, before I get in, both teams defend well, I've got to say, but the skills, when you go for goal, eyes down, I'm going to go for goal, Ben Keys, for example. You don't just run off and kick out of bounds in the full. Find a target. Another skill is, we run with the footy and Darcy Fogarty, O'Reilly, Philville, doesn't matter, you pass it to the other team. What's that? Slow up what the commentary from Fox team said, like Mark Shuto said, take your time, wait for the forwards to go forward, and then find a target. In these conditions, you cannot let that happen. It's harder. Marking was sometimes, was pretty good, but before I get more on the Crows, the Giants, wow, missing goals like a Toby Green, a Aaron Carman, missing set shots on the run costs us the game, and there's no excuses for a Toby Green to missing from 15, 20 metres directly in front, kick around the curve. Miss it. And that's how much Adelaide actually had more confidence coming in, and it was a much better, I've got to say, entertainment to watch. And I did watch all games, but I will quickly break down the quarter by quarter. So LA came out 3-0. That is pretty impressive. And LA had more confidence. They lead by 13 points. So I've got to say, it was very similar to the Melbourne and Fremantle game. It was very close, but in LA it was more windy. And I've got to say, and then LA by 23 points. So the margin, the margin just built up. And GWS did win that quarter in the final quarter, but it wasn't enough. And 18 points, take that. 9 Giants will bounce back big time. I know there'll be a big test against the Western Bulldogs. We'll share that very soon. But Adelaide, this will be a big test coming to Perth on ANZAC night for taking Joe to the West. It will not be easy, and I know Adelaide will look forward to bringing some more talent players like James Pegley. Surely he'll be back from suspension, so I can't wait for him to play. Isaac Cummings against Toby Green in that little bump. Like, you gotta love, settle down off that. Like a Bailey Smith will share that soon, was against Carl Amon. No 15 minute penalty. settle down, just give him the footy. Don't whack the footy to his head, because that's not nice. But, sometimes when you verse your former team and your former teammate, it's always a different experience. But some pretty hard choices to pick. And, look, I gotta say, maybe not gold. He had opportunities. But, Jordan Dawson, same stat. 123 AFL fantasy, 27 disposals, 8 tackles, and 5 marks. So, well done on the captain, Jordan Dawson. You did so well. The ball pressure never gave up. But it's now time for the final game of Easter Saturday for Saturday night footy. Okay, so mate, wow, Saturday night footy, and just the one game, and that's alright, we've done that for some time. A low crowd at Marble, and that's 18,423 packed for the Richmond and Gold Coast. What should be another upset, and 100% it is. Now, no, I did not watch this game, and I was more shocked than anything. I think Gold Coast just want to learn from a loss, and they'll learn it, and they'll bounce back big time, back at home soil, because they don't tend to do well at Marble. I know that for a fact that Richmond were desperate. They look so much energy coming out of that game. And I'll now quickly go very straight into the quarter by quarter. And it's 3 goals to Richmond, Gold Coast 2 goals, and the first Richmond by 7. Richmond add on 3 goals, Gold Coast just the 1 goal. 1 goal. Where's all this? 14 points to Richmond's lead. But it was the third quarter, and knowing that rebuilding team struggled, but Richmond is finding ways to show their class skilled, and their Richmond supporters are right there. And I don't mind this rebuilding from Richmond. They're better than, no offense from any other teams, but, Hawthorn went through that. Adelaide went through a very reasonable, slow, quick rebuild, but Hawthorn got out of that. So this is a signing talent that Richmond has so much potential, and it was 6 goals to 1. Now, Gold Coast are a much better side to come. Do not take any team lightly if you're top team to bottom. And, that's no excuse. But it was a big last quarter for Gold Coast. 5 goals to 0. So Richmond do struggle in final quarters. And that's going to be a big concern. But that's okay. Rebuilding, I call that exception. But you still need to have 4 quarters of football. You can just win and have that last quarter. Yes. Damien Hardwick, he's a legend of a coach. Coach Gold Coast out of nowhere and performed so well. So the claim of well done to Richmond, 12-8-80 to 9-15-69, 11-point victory, and we go to Tim Tuiato, includes 128 for fantasy, 27 disposals, 13 marks, 4 tackles, 661 metres game. So well done to Tim Tuiato from Richmond. Aidan, it's time for your thoughts and reviews for the Tigers and the Suns.
They're from Tiger. Look, Richmond, here's the thing. You can go on and sing the song Down the Royal all night if you want. I guarantee that happened, even though Marvel is a long, long way from the Royal. But, this is a great game from Richmond. I'm so impressed with this team. They are, they're a young team. They took a risk getting all these draft picks this year, coming into this season and hoping it would work. And I've knocked off 2 really big boys already. I've knocked off Carlton, I've knocked off Gold Coast. So, they're a team who I think definitely, come mid-season, come the back end of the year, are going to be in the mix. And they are, they are a very, very good side when the game falls to them. It's just that when the game's not on their side, it just times to go away from them. But they are young, they will develop, they will learn. Gold Coast, big loss, bad loss. They were the top team coming into the week. They drop it to the Tigers at Marvel Stadium, so not even a Richmond home game for them. They are, a team who I think maybe Gold Coast, maybe people overshot Gold Coast mark a little bit now that they are really into that 6 game where I always say that by the time we get to round 6, round 7, we start to see what every team's made of, and I think Gold Coast definitely will still be around the mark. This is a little bit of a blemish. Well, it's a big blemish on their record, losing to Richmond, but, again, we think Gold Coast are going to be up there. I think they are going to be up there. Not as good as maybe they thought they were going to be, 3 weeks ago, but definitely still a team who are going to be in the mix come the end of the year. So, my player of the game for Richmond and Gold Coast, it has to be Tim Taranto with 1 goal, 35 touches, 14 kicks, 21 handballs, 4 marks, and 6 tackles.
Alright, Aidan, take it away. We've got a big entertainment of football. First up, the Swans and the Power. I'll let you share that game. Take it away.
Thank you very much. This is, again, a big shock in the AFL this week. The Sydney Swans, the almighty, the all-conquering Sydney Swans of old are gone. Thank you very much. They are now mortal and we know how to beat them. It is easy to find that. They are not, the big boys that they used to be. So, bad accuracy killed them again. Bad kicking is bad football. But, Port Adelaide put up one hell of an effort against them on, Easter Sunday afternoon and get the well-deserved chockies at the end there. So the Power just, maybe they are in the mix. Maybe they're still there. Maybe there's some life left in them. We just don't know week to week with them. Some weeks they are, quite poor and quite dismal, but some weeks they pull out little tricks like this and take down some bigger teams on the AFL list. So big ups to the Power, big downs for the Swans. Dean Cox looking a little bit lost in that head coaching position. Maybe wasn't the right man for the job, I think. I say some people would be great assistant coaches, not great head coaches. I think Dean Cox fits into that category based on what I've seen from him so far. But we have a long way to go with the Swannies. But again, as I said, big win for the Power, big ups to them. My flavour of the game for this game is from the Power. And it will be Zach Butters, 114 AFL fantasy. No scoreboards, but 27 touches, 13 kicks, 14 handballs, 5 marks, and 8 tackles for the Port Adelaide midfielder.
Okay, so look, Sydney can never pine from a loss. Can Port Adelaide go back-to-back wins? Let's find out. Let's get into it. 4-1. At the end of the first, Port Adelaide by 3 goals. You come to the second quarter, 3-1. Favour of Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide 27 points. And can we see Sydney come from 27 points or Port Adelaide coming home with this big win? Let's find out. 3 goals with Port Adelaide to Sydney as well, 3 goals. So at the end of the third quarter, it was 28 points. So 1 point from half times, it means nothing. And knowing that Sydney came home with 5 goals to Port Adelaide, 3 goals, Sydney winning the quarter, but not getting the victory. Well done to Port Adelaide, defeating Sydney. It was 8 points, but boy, back kicking spread screen, as Aidan said, they never give up, Sydney, and they had to find a way to fight, and they fight hard. But look, Port Adelaide knew they want to start well with teams, and they have struggled. They don't have some of their best players are not playing for the season, but they're looking alright. King Hingley could be out of his season ahead, but they need and I think Josh Carr will take his spot, the big role at Port Adelaide, and I know that'll be interesting to see. So I was a bit concerned that Port Adelaide was going to go through that rebuild season. I think they are, but it's not a heavy rebuild. They're just struggling. They know how to make big road wins, and they did that against a team like Sydney. Anyway, let's get back player of the game. And yeah, Zach Brothers, same thing, 114 AFL fans, and he was 27 disposals, 5 marks, 8 tackles, 7 clearances, and 390 metres game. Okay, we come to the second Super Sunday Easter football, and it's Sunday night football. In my thoughts, in a big way, I personally think this is a really, really good idea. I think to play a base, it doesn't matter where, but especially in Melbourne, knowing that it's going to get, 35,511 packed at Marble Stadium, and we have the Western Bulldogs in St Kilda. Now, I did watch parts of this game, and St Kilda came out really, really well. Like, no idea. Then Western Bulldogs, they have their skipper of Monka Bonts returned from injury, and they have not played since last year. And wow, he plays so well. We'll share that about the player of the game, a bit of an idea of that. We'll find that soon. So we'll share, like I said, the quarter by quarter right now. 4 goals, good start to 3 goals. So it's only 2 points St Kilda, but it changed the level of gear. Western Bulldogs, 5 goals, no goals That is just incredible, and I do not think that is correct. We'll find that out right now. Just really, really quick. Sorry about my... And it was no goals for the second quarter. So this is maybe also the worst defeat in such a long time for St Kilda and Ross Lyon. You know what? It's happened. 28 points, and it was winnable. Can they come back? But it was the third quarter cost St Kilda the game, with 5 goals to St Kilda. That's the 2 goals. 47 points at the end of the third. 5 goals to 2 at the fourth quarter. It was just a big defeat. 18 goals, 19, 127, 856. So, like I said, it's a heavy defeat for St Kilda, and there's no excuse. They've got defeat against the Giants in Galloway at Norwood Oval. They come back, they're back at Marble, they're pretty good, but they get massive defeat, and it's no excuse for them. But I thought this was going to be an exciting, close game at Marble. Both teams love playing there, but unfortunately it didn't go that way. But I'll share the Western Bulldogs St Kilda best on ground, and Mungus Bomb penalty, including 119 84 Fancity was 2 goals, 30 disposals, 5 marks, 4 tackles, 8 clearances, and 442 metres game. Aidan, it's time for your Easter special with the Bulldogs and the Saints. Take it away.
Thank you very much again. And, St Kilda, I've got to say, you guys, you kicked half your goals in the first sort of opening phase of that game, the first 10-15 minutes of that game. You kicked your first 4 goals, and then you only scored another 4 goals for the rest of the game, rest of the night, which is quite telling of St Kilda and probably where they are at, where they're a team where they'll go on these hot patches and these hot phases of football for 10-15 minutes, but they just don't sustain it long enough to hang with the top teams, the teams who are going to be around come September. Western Bulldogs, a team who are definitely in the mix to be there come, late August into September. St Kilda probably could be if they could connect those patches up a bit more. But again, just still learning, still developing their style of play, I think. Probably, again, much like, I say with North Melbourne, Ross Lyon, just a couple of, generations behind where his football head's at. St Kilda are probably playing footy that's stuck in the past a little bit as well. But, the Doggies well played. Luke Beveridge, great win for him, great win for the Doggies after everything that's happened down there this year. And for the Doggies, I just think that now they're in a really good position to, start going and see what they can make a season 2025. So my player of the game, and this was a really tough one because the Doggies had 8 players get over 100 AFL fantasy in this game. So this is a real tough player of the game. But I am going to go with Riley Sanders, 32 touches, 1 goal, 11 kicks, 21 handballs, 11 marks and 4 tackles. So Riley Sanders not only a player of the game, but also with a triple-double.
Okay, final game. And we're here. We made it. And I can't believe we got some sexy football. And that's who we are. The Cats and the Hawks. Now, what I can say that wow factor. Maybe this was a Hawthorn rebuilding from last Easter traditional. And Hawthorn knew this was going to be a Geelong win from last year. But this is a change 12 months later. Now, Hawthorn did bounce back. They respond from nowhere. And they came out of the blocks after Geelong started well. Knew that was going to happen. But before I get my reviews and thoughts, look, Aidan, take it away because I know you're looking forward to this game. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. This was, a great game of football all around. Probably my game of the round, going into the week and then coming out again. Probably lived up to that reputation too of the big top end sides going blow for blow, counterpunch every single time. Those sexy Geelong Cats got out to a lead, the Hawks would find a way to claw them back. But then the Cats would come back, get that lead back, and Hawks would bring them back again. So very, very hotly contested game there. Very, very good football all around both teams. Geelong, as I say every week with the Cats, they are a business-like mindset. Go into a ground, get the 4 points, go home. That's all they care about. They do it again this week. Hawthorn, much better performance than we saw from them in Gather Round against the Power. And, this is probably something they can look back on, more fondly come end of the year. Being like, without Will Day, we were right there with, with Geelong side who are going to be around the same mark as us come the end of the year. There is a negative I want to talk about in this game, though, and that is the Bailey Smith incident. This is the second week in a row now Bailey Smith has gone out of his way to flip off the fans. He did it on his way out of the Crows game in Gather Round, and he's done it again. He's done it again. Harley Reid was doing it to people in the early rounds. Now Bailey Smith's doing it. This is now not just one-off incidents. This is becoming a genuine problem within the AFL right now, and something that AFL CEO Andrew Dillon's going to have to really look into quite deeply, because I thoroughly believe that, these top players because it's not the small guys doing it. It's not the guys who really, aren't on, play a game here, play a game there, VFL, state league level players. It's your top line AFL players at the clubs who are doing this. And it just sets that precedent going down the levels to, community football, junior football, that, this is okay and this is acceptable. So, I know the AFL wants to fine players, but I just don't think the fines are enough, because the fines, these top players, what's 5K to them? What's 10K to them? It doesn't really matter. But when you start, taking weeks from players, when you start suspending players for, what we can call as, disorderly conduct, unbecoming of, the league standards, there's probably a right to suspend players for that. Interacting with fans in a negative manner, is one thing. Having some fun with the fans is one thing. But going out your way and, flipping people off is just completely unacceptable on my standard. So I think the AFL's got to crack down on this and, start taking weeks from players, because then the clubs are going to have to start saying to these guys, we need you on the field and you need to stop doing this, because if you do this, you're going to get taken for a week by the AFL. And we can't have you sitting around doing nothing when we've got a big game coming up. So I think the next progression for that is just the AFL's going to start taking weeks from players for flipping people off. But we will now get back to what was a really, really great game of footy. Only that one little dampener on that game, as I said. But, very good game, very strong game from both sides. And there is only one winner in the Geelong Cats, winning this one 12-14-86 to Hawthorn 11-13-79. And we'll go into my player of the game. And it will be from the Geelong Cats. Probably someone a little bit out of the box to get a Player of the Game award. It's going to be Sean Manor. He kicked the sealer in the end as well. 3 goals from him, 17 touches, 12 kicks, 5 handballs, 1 mark, and 7 tackles, and a really, really good heat map all over that forward pocket, that forward 50 area, getting a lot of touches, a lot of chances to get goals and create score involvements. So that's why Sean Manor is my Player of the Game.
Okay, yeah, so welcome to Easter Monday, traditional Geelong and Hawthorn. What should be a big game, and I think it was. So we've seen close games all round and big upsets, but this one was 88,746 fans, and what I can say, it was early. The fans were riding into it early. They were right, and that's what the commentary said, hearing on the TV. It was amazing. And that's what you go to a football game, especially in this kind of traditional, quiet thing. So can Geelong go back to back, or can Hawthorn just respond? Just bounce back. We knew what we need to do. 4 quarters of football, that's what Hawthorn need to do. And saying that context, Geelong were coming off from that big win against Adelaide, and they need to start well, Hawthorn. And here is the quarter stats, but I'm going to break it down with Geelong. Geelong started well, 4-5-29 to 2-6-18. And it was 11 points the difference. 3 goals each for Geelong and Hawthorn, which leads to 10 points in favour to Geelong. Then we come to the second half. It was 4 goals to Hawthorn, 3 goals to Geelong. So 7 goals in favour of, and really 1 goal apart was in favour of Hawthorn. So it was only 1 goal apart, 6 points. So it's been close all game, and knowing that Hawthorn knew they're going to bounce back and knew they're going to respond. But look, look, Geelong were just too sexy at the very end, as Aidan mentioned, absolutely cracking up laughing. It's like you're getting a cup of tea, which I know we are going to share that very soon, so stay tuned for that. That was last year. We're going to bring that back, and hopefully you do like that little traditional speech. But yeah, getting back, 2 goals apart, it was too strong. Geelong holding on. 12 goals, 14 Geelong to 11, 13, 79 Hawthorn. Hawthorn heads up, bounce back, good effort, do well next round. Geelong do business as usual, play well next week as well. Geelong, Hawthorn best player, Sean Maynard as well, 98th of Anthony, 3 goals, the Matt Siller. I saw that was amazing. Knew that number 7 from Geelong, a very special number, and that was Harry. Oh, I'll think of that defender from Geelong. Anyway, getting back, 17 disposals, 7 tackles, 4 clearances, and 292 metres gained. And like I said, credit to Hawthorn, they never give up. But like with Aidan mentioned, said, it doesn't matter who you are on that footy field. You're playing professional sport. Do not ever put a bad body finger, because that person's going to get offended. Yes, there was an incident, but who is more professional playing and getting big money? Don't do it, because it's really important for safety for others. But the families go to a football game, no matter who the teams are. Don't do it, because that's not nice. But anyway, that is all for Easter round football. I hope you all enjoy it. We are now heading into our predictions. That's it, predictions, and this is huge. Let's now get into round 7, ANZAC round. Okay, so we're halfway through this episode, and I hope you're ready for this traditional, and it's being a big thing. So, ANZAC round, 7 rounds, can't believe it. So, Aidan is going to share all his predictions and how teams are going to go, all 9 games, and then myself, BJ, will share the second same thing. So, it's now time for Aidan to take it away to share his predictions for ANZAC round. Aidan, take it away.
Thank you very much. Thursday night football. Melbourne versus Richmond at the MCG. Melbourne in 17th, Richmond in 15th on the ladder. Very, very, very strong game from Melbourne on the weekend. Just gone. Richmond again. Also a good game getting over Gold Coast. But I just don't see Richmond being able to continue on with this form. I think that Melbourne, the way that they played over Fremantle, I think that is their new blueprint. Is having a small key in Cozzy Pickett in the forward line might be the way they go about this year. And I think they've got a really good midfield defense coming along nicely, and just being able to now generate a little bit more scoreboard pressure against other sides. It's very, very helpful. So I'm going to take Melbourne in that one, and since it is the first game of the round, I will have to give the win to Melbourne. Melbourne going over by 15 points. Second game of the round is the big one. 2:30 p.m. Friday the 25th of April. The ANZAC Day match between Collingwood and Essendon. You know what I will be doing. I will have my tea and my ANZAC Beckies, and I will be sitting down and watching this game of footy. This is, as I always say, one of my favourite games, one of my favourite days on the AFL calendar, that we have the opportunity to respect and pay our respects to those people who served our country in Australia, come before us, and then celebrate that day by doing what we do best in this country, and that's putting on a really, really good game of footy against the world, showing, this is what Australia is about, celebrating these big moments with some footy, but come the game, I think this is one-way traffic. I think Collingwood really, really are a much better side than Essendon. Essendon, again, it is ANZAC Day. It is the big ANZAC Day game. Essendon will always be in the contest. last year they played out the draw, so I just don't see that happening. I think Collingwood go on a little bit more this year. They do win this one quite comfortably in the end. We then have a second game on Anzac Day. It is at night and it is at the Optus Stadium in West Australia. It is the Fremantle Dockers and the Adelaide Crows, and this is one that genuinely could be the match of the round. Two teams who are going to be, looking to be at that point again come the end of the year. Fremantle, big loss to Melbourne, I think. Again, teams who put pressure on Fremantle consistently and don't let the pressure up are the teams who beat Fremantle. I think the Crows, again, are a great landmark statement of that. Teams who pressure, they're gonna be right in the mix. I think the pressure is gonna tell. I think the Crows are gonna take this one on their pressure game because, as I've said time and time again, Fremantle can't handle any little bit of continued pressure by the opposition. So, even away from home, big win for the Crows there. We now come to the Saturday and we start with St Kilda and Brisbane. St Kilda, again, probably going to be very, very patchy in this game, showing, that they are still a team who are developing their form, developing their style of football against the Brisbane team who, they come out, they won the premiership, the reigning defendings are going to come back and do what they do best, and that is take names, and they're going to be taking St Kilda's name in this one. So Brisbane probably going to win this one quite well, over St Kilda. They've probably got just the better quality, the better structure at the moment. Even though they had that loss to Collingwood, I don't think, maybe shakes them a little bit, but after a while they're going to get right into the game. They're going to run over St Kilda very much in the same way that the Doggies did in round 6. We then come to the Adelaide Oval for Port Adelaide and North Melbourne, and this is, again, a Port Adelaide side just trying to find their identity and trying to find where they fit in on the bigger stage in 2025, playing against a North Melbourne team who are looking like they have the talent, they have the players, they have the ability, but they're just not able to put it all together, and I just don't think they're going to be able to do it against Port Adelaide. Port Adelaide are going to be really riled up after that big win against the Swans and looking to really press their case to say, well, hang on, we're still in the mix here. We are Port Adelaide, and we are a team who are always dangerous and going to be looking for a good shot at a premiership. I don't think that'll happen in the end, but we'll be taking them over at North Melbourne this week, so I'm taking Port Adelaide in that one. Then we come to the Saturday night game, which is GWS and the Doggies, and this is two teams who genuinely can't stand each other, and this is, again, a great game to put on ANZAC round. It just shows the grittiness and the toughness of AFL. Two teams who can't stand each other going at it on ANZAC Day, or ANZAC weekend, Saturday night footy, and I just think the GWS this year going to be a little bit stronger than Western Bulldogs, coming off that loss to the Crows, even though the Doggies did take over against St Kilda. That was in Melbourne. This game, obviously, going to be played in Canberra at Manuka Oval, where GWS are just so strong in the ACT, so GWS will get the win in that one. We now come to our final 3 games of the round on the Sunday. We start with the Gold Coast Suns and the Sydney Swans at People's First Stadium on the Gold Coast, and this is one of those games where I just think Gold Coast are at home. They are very, very strong at home. Sydney, again, Dean Cox is still just trying to find his identity as a frontline AFL coach rather than an assistant, and if Sydney could get a big win here, that would be great. Do I think that would happen? No, I don't. I think Gold Coast at home just too strong. We'll get the win here. Second game of the Sunday could be another match of the round, a contender between the Blues and the Cats from the MCG. Carlton looking like they're coming back into the Carlton of the last couple of years, showing that form that they have against West Coast and North Melbourne is one thing, but showing that form against a real top quality side and the Geelong Cats is another. I just don't think they're going to be able to do that. I think Geelong will be, just too good for them come the end of the day. So Geelong have the numbers, have the players in form, probably have the players available, and will be taking Carlton down in that one. Well, our final game of the round is Hawthorn versus West Coast, and West Coast are a team who are lacking, well, they're not even lacking an identity at this point. They are lacking any signs of life. They are, apart from, their little show up in the first half against Essendon, they have been absolutely flatline on the monitor. There is not much going on down there at West Coast, and Hawthorn, again, a big team these days who are probably looking to get a win. Two losses in a row for the Hawks. I don't want to make it 3 at Marvel against West Coast, and I don't see them doing that. I think they're a much better side, a much more well-coached side, a much more well-structured side than West Coast are at the moment, and I'll be taking Hawthorn in that one.
Okay, well, this is it. Welcome all to ANZAC round, as known as Lest We Forget. There's more of that. Well, yeah. So there's big traditional Essendon and Collingwood, and last time these two played on ANZAC, it was a draw. And knowing that Essendon were totally in good form, but they're fun in good form and not in good form, but it should be a good contest. I think it'll be a comfortable win for Collingwood in my vote, but we'll get to that. But it is the 30th anniversary between these two teams. Back in 1995, this is how it all started. ANZAC Day has been around for a lot more longer, and there's a lot more history to do with that. Now, what is ANZAC is? Well, it's what Aidan said. It's about those men and women's to help our country and all that, but Aidan did explain that as well. So we'll go straight into my reviews and predictions and all that. Like, knowing that Essendon coming big road win over in Perth against West Coast, which should be anyone's game. Collingwood, one way or another, too strong over Brisbane, will come fresh, ready to go. You know, sold out packed house up to between 85 to 95,000. It will be packed. This is what I love. And, you know, I also hopefully have not just a cup of tea, but also have my biscuits as well, what it's all about. Because ANZAC biscuits, my absolute favourite treat. I have not had them for so long, so will and deserve. And I'll be at my Kenilworth Football Club helping raffle tickets. As you don't know, that I have also been honoured to do the director of the ticket reserve that generation. So that is me directing, helping people helping me to sell raffle tickets for Kenilworth. So that's what I've actually enjoyed. So I'll be there watching, not just watching a game of Kenilworth football, Kookaburra's Footy Club take on whoever that is. It doesn't matter with that. But also watching a bit of the Pies, Essendon, Collingwood and Essendon as well, which a lot of people should be watching. What's so important. So, like I said, let's end this first game. Out of the 9 games, I've chose Collingwood to win this, and it should be a 5-goal victory. We come to the second ANZAC Day. It's in the night time. It's Friday night footy. We head to the west at Optus Stadium, Fremantle and the LA Crows. Well, disappointing is it's going to be the word performance. Knowing that they will bounce back against the Crows. Now, how much is bouncing back? They've got their Fremantle supporters. That's great. But can they do well against the Crows? Of course, they did that last year. And can they do back-to-back? Well, we'll find out. But with the LA Crows, big winners. Knew that was not going to be easy. It's going to be a good test against Fremantle, knowing that won't be easy trip to Perth. But I'm going with the Crows, obviously. It should be about a 2-goal, 3-goal. Hopefully they do have a good list. Adelaide, not I'm saying with Fremantle, but Adelaide should do well. They're neat and they're very good with ball pressure, Adelaide. So they'll bring that heat big time. So there you go. And I think the crowd will be the 40,000. It will be a sold out. It should be a good game to watch, depending on the weather. But yeah. We're going to Super Saturday footy. 3 games we're going to share with you all. First game in Melbourne at Marble Stadium for the Saints and the Lions. St Kilda and Brisbane. Then we head to Adelaide Oval for the Port Adelaide Power and the North Melbourne Roos that ended up with at Marble Oval in Canberra for GWS Giants and the Western Bulldogs. First up, let's go to the Saints and the Lions. And boy, this will be the worst loss as well with Brisbane. Both teams getting smashed in Easter round. They want to bounce back. One team will do that. And I'm going to back up with Brisbane. They will bounce back. they're still a good team. They're in the top 4 as we speak. And I know Zanka will bounce back, but how much they want to win this. And it's so important. But getting into, look, it will be, I think it'll be close, but I think it'll be close most of the game. And Brisbane will just run out. They'll just absolutely dominate in that last bit of that last quarter and finish it strong. So Brisbane Lions for me, and I'm saying a 4-goal win. We're heading to Port Adelaide and North Melbourne, and should be a, don't ever say easy win, but should be a good contest. North Melbourne did well. They were back in Adelaide a few weeks ago. Same with St Kilda, did the same thing, but how much that North Melbourne want to start well, and they want to start well big time. They've got a team that can perform, but how much they want to win this North Melbourne. That's the big question. But I'm saying with Port Adelaide, it's in front of their supporters. Should be a good crowd. I reckon it'll be about that 40,000 on a Saturday afternoon. Should be a good game to watch. And I think that Port Adelaide will start really quick. They did that against Hawthorn. They did that well against Sydney on the road. So this should be a big win. And Port Adelaide will take a nice win over North Melbourne. Okay, we got the one game on Saturday night, football for Super Saturday footy. And we've got the Giants and the Bulldogs. And I tell you right now, as Aidan mentioned, these two hate each other. No matter why. We have a new rival, and I think this will be a good rival. But again, part of it, this should be a good bounce back from the Giants. They'll come out absolute firing. Same with the Doggies. I think it'll be a very close match. And same with the Giants, knowing that they have been, I learned a lesson from that against the Crows. But it should be under 1 goal. I reckon it's going to be, or maybe 7 points in front of the Giants, and it should be close all night. So here we go. Super Sunday football for ANZAC round, and we got 3 more games to remain to share with you all. First up, it's Gold Coast and Sydney. Then they'll be at People's First Stadium. Then we got the Cum Blues and Geelong Cats, the big rival at the MCG. And then final, Hawthorn Hawks host the West Coast Eagles. First up, well, the Suns and the Swans. Now, disappointing result kicking back footy from the Swans. Very, very disappointing from Gold Coast. You know Richmond will come out absolute firing. But it was the last quarter, absolutely dominate. That wasn't enough. They'll come out Gold Coast. They know what they need to learn, and they'll learn from that loss, as they say. With Sydney, they have to come out and play well against an improved Gold Coast, which they are. They've got a good start on players. It's going to be close, but I think Gold Coast will absolutely dominate, and they'll do really well, and they'll win by 3 goals. So 16 points for Gold Coast. It should be interesting, should be good entertainment of football. We come to the second game. MCG should be about the 75,000 pack at the MCG. And oh my goodness, the Cats and the Blues, MCG. This is an easy ANZAC traditional. It should be absolute entertainment, and it should be in big time. And I think Geelong will take this win, but it will be close. It will be a 12-point victory in front of Geelong. Now, depending on the weather, it could be windy, it can be hot, could be raining. It doesn't matter. It should be a good game. It should be good entertainment. For the final game of ANZAC round, it is Hawthorn Hawks, West Coast Eagles. I'm going to say big winners to Hawthorn. They should dominate. They cannot afford 3 losses in a row. But can West Coast come out firing? We'll find out that part. But they cannot. They'll come out well, West Coast, and play their full quarters as usual. But I think Hawthorn will just totally kill it and finish it strong. So Hawthorn for my tip for this game. All right. That is all from the Aussie Footy Show for Easter round reviews and thoughts and restrictions for ANZAC round. Hopefully you make sure you get your bickies and your cup of tea for whoever you go for. Make sure that ANZAC round's important for that. So before we go, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we like the BJ Show would like to reach 1K 1,000 downloads. May, even sooner rather than later. It's going to be tight, but that'll be much appreciated. And like I mentioned, what you have to do is just find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Facebook page, The BJ Show Podcast. Please like it. All the latest episodes will be on there. And wherever you get your podcasts, that will be much appreciated. Aidan, thank you so much. Be part of this show. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. Being back in this studio. It's much appreciated again on the BJ Show.
Yeah, thank you for having us on again. This has been a real fun show today. I've really enjoyed what we've talked about. Talking about, a lot of footy today, talking about gather round in South Australia, looking forward to ANZAC Day again. My favourite round of the season is ANZAC round because it's about honouring, the past of this country with some footy.
Yes, absolutely. Alright, that's all for now. The BJ Show is out. Bye for now. See you all soon.